agree. So, what financial aspects in divorce do women sometimes forget about when we're planning that window, whether it's
Yeah,
5 year window, 10 year window, 15 year window?
yeah, it's a great question. And sometimes I understandably understand why we as women sometimes don't think about the whole financial picture. And the goal is just to kind of get out of the divorce. It can be so difficult. And as Robin Williams said, it's like pulling your heart out through your wallet. Well,
Mhm.
it's also all those emotions. And sometimes I do see our clients willing to accept an agreement that isn't necessarily fair to them. They're leaving money on the table because they're dealing with a difficult spouse, a spouse that maybe isn't revealing all of the assets and information that they need to make good, sound decisions, and wanting to just get out of the marriage to a new place to start their life. And I can 100% understand why so many people feel that way. But the challenge that we face is that that short-term focus can have long-term impact. And so when you're looking at that settlement agreement and you're looking at the split between your spouse and yourself and what you might be receiving or paying for child support or spousal support, to think about, does this work for me now? Does this work for me in 5 years? And does this work for me long term? And think not just the here and now, I'm going to be fine while I'm receiving the spousal support and the child support, but I'm going to be falling off a cliff afterwards. Really thinking long term, to make sure that you're going to be financially secure out to age 95. And your spouse is not responsible to keep you financially secure out to 95, nor are you responsible for your spouse, but you're responsible for yourself. And there are a lot of decisions about what assets to take, whether or not you keep the primary home or sell it and downsize, whether you might go back to work. And, as much as we don't like to have to do it, but possibly change our expenses and how much we're spending and what our lifestyle costs. These are all tools that we have as women to set ourselves up for a long-term financial security future.
Very helpful. I think one common and very big question on women's minds is the matrimonial home.
Yeah.
I'm just guessing, but and it's every situation is unique, but what are your recommendations around selling or keeping the marital home?
It's for most couples, it's the most valuable asset they have, especially because we've seen real estate go up in value over all these years. And what I find is that the majority of the women that we work with would prefer to keep the home, especially if they have children. And the source of doing this is from a very good place. It's to maintain stability. It could be to also keep expenses low. Maybe there's no mortgage, or they've been paying down the mortgage for many years, so the mortgage payment is relatively low. But for some women, keeping the house actually doesn't work. And there's a few reasons. If you are going to take the home, let's say it's worth $1 million, we'll just use a big number like that. It means that you're taking this $1 million asset, you're going to have to give your spouse another asset that's worth $1 million for it to equal out. And where is that going to come from? Very few people have that much money where they have $1 million home and they have $1 million brokerage account and maybe $1 million retirement account. And so it could be that by taking the house, you've got these wonderful four walls, but you don't have a retirement portfolio working for you for your long-term future.
Yeah.
And you're exposing yourself to, essentially this asset better go up in value because you've just given up a retirement plan that could be growing at 5% or 6% in the stock market. Now you have a house, and house typically will grow by 3% roughly. And of course, every part of the country is a little different, but you're making a different, you're exchanging different types of assets and they have different growth potentials. And so, understanding that's one of the things that is really important, Barbara. Um, and have you seen women also kind of torn with this conflict?
Yes, just because there's so much emotionality tied into the asset of the matrimonial home. It's just such a place that's anchored to our sense of home, our sense of safety, and to me, it's quite an
Yeah.
emotional part of the whole negotiation um, for women
Yeah,
in
yeah,
divorce.
yeah. And it's a hard one, and it's not only this is an asset that will have a different growth rate than, let's say, your retirement plan. Um, your retirement plan doesn't cost you money. Your house is going to eventually potentially need a new roof. It might need its boiler fixed. It's an asset that costs money. And often we'll see that she'll take the home for a certain period of time and then after that sell. But what's difficult is that when she sells, she's also burdening all the expenses of selling. If there's any real estate, agent fees, the prep for selling it, the moving cost, if there's been any gains in the value of the property, potentially having to pay some taxes. These are all things that taking a real hard look at the house and making a decision during the divorce is this right for me? Um, so that if you do sell, you can share those costs with your spouse, not just you burning it. Or if you're going to keep it, that you put that in your agreement that we agree we're going to keep this until the kids graduate college. And at that point, we'll sell it and we'll both burden the cost, deal with the costs of selling. So there are ways around it, but
Uh,
it's just being thoughtful and to be honest, Barbara, I think being creative too. Um, you know, usually if there's a will, there's a way of finding something that's going to work for your family.
I feel like